Good afternoon, and welcome again to our Diverse by Design virtual panel entitled The Unsung Heroes of AI. I am Omanase MacArthur, Senior Director of Perscolla's Diverse by Design and your moderator for today, and I am genuinely excited about today's discussion, and I hope you are too. Perscolla's Diverse by Design is the preeminent leadership resource in how to deliver and retain diverse technology talent. Perscolas is prepared to take advantage of AI's potential to build a learning environment where learners are thriving rather than just adjust to change. Perscolas has introduced AI training into our courses to ensure technologists are prepared for the careers of today and the future. Courses in IT support, cybersecurity, software engineering, and others will prepare technologists to work firsthand with generative AI and AI tools that are quickly becoming household names in the industry. Technologists will be prepared to use AI responsibly through training on responsible AI use, ethics, governance, compliance, and security. These courses cover a wide range of topics from computer vision and natural language processing to ethical considerations in AI, risk management, and AI security. By participating in these programs, our technologists gain not only the technical skills they need to navigate the AI landscape, but also the ethical framework to apply these technologies responsibly in the industry. We're not just teaching AI, we are integrating AI principles into our operational DNA model, the potential for innovative, ethical AI-powered organizations. And that brings me to our guests. I am honored to be joined by leaders in the evolving AI space for this dynamic conversation. Please welcome Marta Bezawari, EVP and co-head of Human Resources at PIMCO, to the virtual stage. In addition to her role, she is a member of PIMCO's Artificial Intelligence Governance Committee, where she partners with technology, data science, and business leadership on the adoption of emerging technologies to enable and transform the workforce. Welcome, Marta. Our next panelist is Rafiki Kai, a community AI scholar at the University of San Francisco and the volunteer CTO of Friends of the Congo. He is a veteran internet strategist serving luminaries and prominent organizations from Capitol Hill to Hollywood. He is currently in residence with the Computer Science Department at the University of San Francisco to envision, craft, and deploy AI courses and experiences that empower students for meaningful service-based learning. Next, please join me in welcoming Tiffany Shea, the Director of Innovation Programs at JFF Labs. She is responsible for strategy and operations for the launch of the Center for Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Work. And to complete our virtual panel is Eyal Darman, a public service generative AI lead, customer service experience lead, and managing director at Accenture. He works with clients across the public sector, including higher education and nonprofits, to help them take advantage of the generative AI and AI innovations that are transforming the delivery of customer experiences, organization workforce, and the enterprise. So a special thank you to each of you for being present today.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So many of us are familiar with the word hero, or the saying, not all heroes wear capes. The technology sector is full of these types of people. The people who work tirelessly behind the scenes in roles saving, serving, or even sustaining the platforms or apps or websites, and so much more that we have grown to love and made a part of our daily life. More specifically, when I think about artificial intelligence, I imagine even more of those unsung heroes who are supporting the development, maintenance, security, and sustainability of AI as a whole. Rafiki, who, or maybe even what, would you say is an unsung hero of AI?
So, since data is the blood of AI,
Uh-huh.
right, I would say that the unsung heroes are those persons who help us to curate off path data,
Mm,
right? Not all of the global wisdom and insight and knowledge of the world is connected to the internet or is already in data stores, right? So we need researchers, we need oral historians, we need all kinds of collectors of non-traditional data, expansive data, diverse data, right? That can curate that blood and bring it into the flow. So that may be like an unsung hero that we don't often think about. The wider our data is, the richer our data is, the richer our AI will be.
Oh, thank you for pointing that out. It's giving me, the GIROT, that keeps the story. So whoever keeps the story is kind of feeding that data. Good point. Thank you, Rafiki. Marta, in your role, who would you say specifically you would see as the unsung heroes of AI?
Sure. In my experience, it takes a village. So not only the quantitative research analysts and the technologists that we all think of immediately when we think of AI, but also others like project managers, human resources, legal compliance, and other control functions. Everything you talked about in your introduction around responsible AI and ethics and fairness, like there are those functions that have expertise in that and get involved when AI is being utilized. Also operations and workflow experts, in addition to the data and data analytics folks that Rafiki talked about, and then also folks on the business. So AI is generally being applied in a business context, and so you need those business subject matter experts to guide on, what are the target outcomes that the AI should achieve.
Thank you for lifting that. I guess in my head, and other people too, maybe when you hear AI, we don't always think about the people who are not necessarily using a tech trained skill, right? So working in HR and how that encompasses it too, like you just mentioned, Marta. So thank you for lifting that. Tiffany, who would you say are these unsung heroes that we're trying to speak of here?
Yeah, I would actually really agree with what Marta said. I was going to say that the collaboration between technical and non-technical talent is really an unsung hero. I think we hear a lot about technical talent developing specific use cases for companies, but that requires working in tandem with non-technical talent and also giving them the tools to be able to play around with the technology, understand the technology and its specific use cases. And that might have a bottoms up approach to bubble up some use cases that maybe, folks might not have thought of from a technical perspective. So involving the voices of all workers at a company, I think is really important.
I agree. Collaboration, that's a good word right there. So far, we're on a roll here. We have the storyteller, we have the village, and we have the collaboration. Hey, y'all, how would you like to add to this? Who do you see as these unsung heroes in AI?
Well, in addition to what was said to date, I think the thing that I see as the unsung hero in AI are the people that have that innovative gene in them, that as this new technology has started to show up, they've taken a step back and said, I'm really good at X, but this is something that I should start to pay attention to. And they've taken the initiative to learn, self-study, find the courses, find the disciplines in order to build up their personal brand and their personal skills so that in this evolving new technology, they're relevant. And so the folks that have that innovative gene in them, that have proactively reached out and have identified these new areas that they should start to pick up their skills in, and enhance those skills are ones that I think they're not just the unsung heroes, but they're the individuals that are going to be the most successful with this new evolution of technology.
Oh, good point, y'all. And I like how you mentioned the innovative thinkers, those creative people that we all know someone like that, or maybe we're like that ourselves, but adding the creativity to this collaboration and village of storytelling. So thank you for lifting that, y'all. And as you were just mentioning skills, y'all, how would you say the skills acquired in training tracks like software engineering or data analytics and Python programming at Perscolas contribute to the broader ecosystem of AI technology development, or even additional softer skills that you see emerging into the contribution of AI?
Well, one thing that I would share with this group is that the way we're viewing AI and generative AI is not a replacement of existing technologies and skills, but rather an augmentation. And so if you think of, and I'll give you an example, if you think of a software developer, historically, a software developer would have to write custom code for anything that they needed to enhance in a system. With AI, they now have the ability to go one step further. they can have generative AI, a GitHub Copilot or AWS Code Whisper or other technologies. Give them the starter set, draft the first set of code instead of them drafting it from scratch. That is just an evolution of every skill that Perscola has and every track that you have, because what it's going to do is it's going to just make all of us more effective, more efficient. It's not going to replace the need for software engineers or data analytics, but rather it's going to make all of us just slightly more effective, slightly more able to meet our customers' needs when we develop a system, our business counterparts' needs as we implement a new solution.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Eyal, because what I'm hearing too, when you say that, it's reminding me of something I heard a couple of weeks ago at another panel where someone said that AI is not a workforce replacement. It's a workforce enablement. So as we think about that, I think that kind of sums up what you said too. And people have to start looking at it that way, because we do have people who think it's coming to, take all of the jobs and things like that.
I'll give you an example that maybe isn't even a technical example that everyone on this call can relate to.
Okay.
I have Microsoft Outlook as my corporate Outlook. I use generative AI, the Microsoft Copilot, as a feature of Outlook. What I do in Outlook is I can summarize an email thread so that I don't have to read the back and forth by the time I get to that email. All of us have those email threads.
Right, that's why I'm
All
laughing.
of us struggle reading through the back and forth by the time we got to it. I have a button that says summarize, and it gives me a summary of that entire email thread. That doesn't change the fact that I still use email, I still send emails, but that just made me more efficient in reading emails. And I would say I've done a little bit of an A/B testing on it. I probably save 30 minutes a day in Outlook by using a single button that changes the way I use a tool. Now, expand that. That's not going to change me doing work. That's just going to make me more effective and likely free me up to do other things and maybe get off a little bit of that kind of hamster wheel we're all on, constantly, and in email especially, constantly reading, responding to emails. This just simplifies that task. It doesn't replace it.
I like that. Efficiency on top of that. Thank you for lifting that. Tiffany, how would you say the skills acquired in our training tracks here at Perscola that I mentioned contribute to AI technology development or any softer skills that you see emerging?
Yeah, so I'll defer to the other panelists on the more technical skills, but I think the softer skills, their durable skills, are really, really critical here. We've done some research at JFF around the impact of AI on jobs and skills, and I think we've really consistently heard the need to double down on those durable skills, right? So we did an analysis, for example, that looked at high growth occupations in the US and that are available to folks without bachelor's degrees. And far and away, every occupation really had durable skills at the forefront that are kind of lasting throughout some of the technical changes that happen on a year-to-year basis. And those skills are really important when we think about the AI ecosystem, because they're contributing to the critical lens that we're bringing to the table. We know that there are lots of limitations and biases within AI, but having those critical skills, but also ability to collaborate, again, like what I was saying before, with other folks across different departments, leadership and communication, those are all going to enhance the way that we develop and use AI on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you for mentioning more of the softer skills, because I think oftentimes those are the ones that go overlooked or just unnoticed, and people don't realize it, how much they contribute. Marta, I'm coming to you next. I want to hear what you think, how you say the skills that we have that we're training for at Perscola, or maybe some emerging skills that you may think of that you see contributing to AI. What have you noticed?
Sure, and I would echo a lot of what Eyal and Tiffany have already outlined, in that, AI is going to be embedded into existing business processes and systems and tools, not the other way around. And that's quite important, because that means that all the foundational skills and beyond that Perscola is developing its participants to have will continue to be needed. It's just about figuring out how will AI be embedded into those and take those to the next level as it relates to engaging with, AI specific use cases and situations. So, one example would be cybersecurity, which I know is in one of the learning tracks. So, AI systems, they often handle really sensitive data and make critical decisions. And so having those cybersecurity skills is essential to protecting the AI systems from threats like data breaches and ensuring that continued integrity and confidentiality of the data that's being used for those AI models. I mean, even another skill like IT support, which I know is also in the learning tracks that Perscola pursues, foundational IT skills are really important for setting up and maintaining the hardware and the software environments where those AI systems operate. So that includes being able to troubleshoot and optimize the system performance. So for instance, the Outlook example that you shared, Eyal, I mean, that summary tool would not be helpful to you if it had a latency of 20 minutes. It'd be quicker for you to read through that email chain. And so making sure that IT environment is also there to support what you want out of the AI, I think is extremely important.
Yeah, we can all use an extra 30 minutes somewhere. I know the day goes by fast, and that 30 minutes can mean something to someone somewhere. I know it could for me. So thank you, Marta, for mentioning that. Again, the efficiency that comes with it as an enablement is really important when you think about those skills. Rafiki, how would you say the skills acquired in training tracks that we have here at Perscolas contribute to the broader ecosystem, or any other skills you see emerging that contribute?
So I'm actually going to go rogue a little bit.
Go, here
since,
for it.
since AI is about being more, about all of us being more and doing more, right? I'm going to prod Perscolas, and I hope that there's some management at Perscolas on this Zoom right now, right? I'm going to prod Perscolas to think about an AI track itself, right? Skills like open source models, APIs, prompting, preparation of data, right? There are so many workplaces that are struggling with these kinds of things, right? How do we develop our own models in-house, right? So that our data does not have to go into the cloud, right? So that we have models that are fine-tuned for what our concerns are, what our reality is, right? And so there's definitely room and calling for an AI track that really skills people up with those very fundamental and basic skills, vector databases, embeddings. We could go on and on and on. And so that's my take, not on just what Perscolas already has, because you've mastered that, right? What about the expansion and the growth? I think that would be mine.
That's good, Rafiki. It's not, I won't consider it rogue though, because I will say here for Perscolas, because we are tech workforce development, we are staying on top of ball and ahead of the ball, thinking down the road about some of the things you've even mentioned here, because we do recognize as with the work that we do, that it will require us to constantly evolve as technology evolves. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So Marta, as we move from traditional AI, which we know is focused on analyzing historical data and making future predictions, to generative AI, which is capable of generating text, images, videos, and more in response to prompts, how should employers be looking to use AI as a tool? And we kind of touched on this a little bit, instead of as a workforce replacement. If we could just dive a little deeper in that, Marta, what would you say you're discovering in your role and seeing?
Sure. And this is really near and dear to my heart as an HR professional. So I'm excited to share perspectives on this. And I think it starts with what we've been talking about, which is viewing AI as a tool to augment human contributions, but not as a substitute for human judgment or decision-making or accountability, which are all equally important in the workplace. And, from my seat in HR, most of the corporate roles at our organization, and I would imagine at many others, are not fixed by design. They need flexibility and include elements of tasks and judgment and decision-making, creativity, as Eyal said, thinking, communication, influence, oversight. It's multifaceted what constitutes a role. And AI today, at least, is still pretty narrow and prescribed in its application. And so the AI of today is not able to balance the full set of responsibilities of a role autonomously. So
Yes.
when you think about it through that lens, that eliminates the possibility of AI substituting the person in its entirety. And so instead, I think employers can recognize that diversity and what it takes to perform a role fully and competently, and seek instead to harness the best of what humans bring to the table and what AI brings to the table, and have the two work together to achieve better outcomes. And so for this, to me, you need to have business teams and HR teams partner together to define how is AI going to impact the given roles in a specific team or business line? How do those roles need to evolve? What are the new responsibilities that the team will have to take on that come with the integration of AI? So we talk a lot about going from being the maker or the producer to now being the overseer when you've embedded AI to optimize, a process or create that efficiency. Someone still has to surveil the output and ensure that it's doing what it needs to be doing, but you're not so much in the weeds on checking that email chain or, whatever it was that you were doing before the AI, augmented that task for you. And then once you have that picture of the roles and how they might evolve, then you can determine like what is the right talent strategy for you. So where are you going to staff your human workers? Where are you going to staff your AI or digital workers, as we're calling them? How do the two interplay, and what does the organization of the future look like as a result? I mean, I talk a lot about AI being no different than a calculator. Hopefully that doesn't offend anybody on this call, but a calculator on its own doesn't do anything unless you use it. And so I view AI very much as similar in that it's going to be a tool that people can use, but on its own, it's not going to do anything unless you've asked it to do something.
Yeah, that's true, Marta. It goes back to input. That's kind of what Rafiki was talking about, that the blood life of AI being data coming from people. Rafiki, I'm going to move on to you for this question too, because you mentioned about historical data. So as we know, AI is focused on analyzing historical data and making future predictions. How do you see employers being able to use AI further as this tool of enablement?
So my theme again is being more and doing more, right? So I would encourage every organization and every environment to think about GAI and post GAI, right? So if we have this tremendous amplifier of ability,
Yes.
what type of an organization or enterprise can we be on the other side of GAI, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to be the same that we are. We don't want to be tomorrow the same that we are today. How can we rethink our business plans? How can we rethink our business models? How can we deliver more value, right?
More.
So we really have to encourage people that it's not about doing more with less. It's about doing more with more, right? But in more in more richer and broader ways. How can we change paradigms? How can we break constraints, right? How can we be more?
I like that response. Thank you, Rafiki. Do more with more, not do more with less. I like that a lot. I think I'm actually going to repeat that to myself today, Rafiki. Tiffany, I know earlier you mentioned something about bias in AI, and I think this will give us the opportunity to kind of dive into that a little bit more, because when you think about AI being where it analyzes historical data and making those future predictions to generative AI, how do you see this AI as a workforce enablement tool?
Yeah, so I would love to build upon what Rafiki and Marta said, right? So Rafiki, I think your point about doing more with more, right? How do we think about AI differently, right? Not just about the one-to-one substitution of tasks, right? Being able to take notes with an AI note taker instead of me taking notes myself, but really lean into what generative AI can do, what's possible, right? There's a sort of an agentic nature of AI that's a little bit different than some of the technologies that we may have seen in the past. So what does that help us do to augment what humans can do? And then also as an organization, related to what Marta was saying, how do we dive deep into the specific skills and the makeup of the skills and the impacts of AI? I think a lot of the narrative that we've had so far has been around, oh, 80% of the workforce will have 10% of their tasks affected or impacted by AI, or this percentage of jobs are going to be, displaced. But why don't we get a little bit deeper into what that actually looks like? What does impact mean? Because it can mean anything from straight replacement of a specific task to elevating and augmenting what humans can do. And so better understanding that mix for each particular role is going to be really important as we think about the augmentation piece of this. And it's going to help us prepare workers, right, for the specific impacts that AI is going to have. So if you think about, my own role, the note-taking example for, that's going to help me be more efficient for certain, but it's not a really important task to the overall job that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. And so it's going to have a little bit less of an impact in terms of the impact of AI and automation on my role. But if we think about, a tractor trailer driver, the act of driving is really important for that role. And by automating that, that's going to completely change the way that that role is going to be organized. And so how do we think about the new paradigm for that role? What does that look like? And then how are we also supporting workers to in that transition between what is true now and what is going to be true in the future?
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. Yeah, we definitely need the driver to still drive the truck. I think that's important. I like that you pointed that out, because some people, again, do have that thought process that, oh, I won't have to do this part of my role. But like you said, with note taking, yeah, maybe AI can help with your note taking or maybe even make it better, but will it replace the human aspect of it? So changing that paradigm to keep the human in it, I think, is very important. So as we consider the reliance on data again and the potential for encoding biases into AI systems, what role does a diverse workforce play in identifying and mitigating these biases? Rafiki, I'll start with you.
So here's always, because I always get like a litany of people like bringing the bias question to me and asking my insight, right?
Right.
I think people need to expand the model, right? If you only think that the world is going to be driven by the FANG models and it's a top-down situation, and if there's bias in the FANG models, then the whole world has bias, right? I challenge people to think about every community can have their own model. Every enterprise can have their own model. Every college, university, institution can have their own model that can be trained, right, with the sensitivities that that community feels is important, right? So if you think that there's bias in a model, then, and this is why open source is so important, and that people understand that there is a formidable and powerful space in AI that is open source. Where models that have cost $1 billion or more to train is openly available, right? So you don't have to be over concerned about the bias that's in a particular model. Fine tune and address those sensitivities, and then you make a contribution. You don't have to just accept whatever someone else cooked up. You can cook as well, because the technology is open in that way. That's my take.
Yeah, I like that. I think the young people say, let them cook. So they're saying it that way. Tiffany, I want to hear your opinion on this as well. When we think about the reliance of data and the potential for encoding biases, where do you see a diverse workforce playing into identifying or mitigating those biases?
Yeah, just like Rafiki said, right, it's super critical to have a diverse workforce with diverse perspectives. I think as we're thinking about developing AI technologies, and we think about the way that maybe they've been developed in the past, they're developed sort of towards the mean user, right, the average user, and that doesn't always reflect everybody. And so how do we think about, and we had this conversation with Upwardly Global, for example, how do we designed for edge cases, as they called them, right? So Upwardly Global works a lot with refugees and immigrants, and they did a study that looked at an AI skills matching tool, and that tool misidentified the skills of refugees and immigrants, 35% of the time for their education credentials, 20% of the time for their work experiences, and everybody that used that tool in that study had some sort of issue with the way that their skills were being represented. So what does that tell us about what we need to do to bring more diverse voices to the table is that we need to be designing with those communities. Like Rafiki said, the smaller models, right? Fine-tuning them for the right use cases, for the right populations, and inclusively designing alongside instead of more top-down just for those populations, or maybe not even for them at all.
I like that. That goes back to that collaboration piece you mentioned earlier, Tiffany. Marta, you're in human resources. So I definitely want to hear, what do you think when you consider this data piece and the potential for encoding bias into AI? How do you see a diverse workforce playing into mitigating those biases?
Yeah, I think about it across two lenses of bias. So the first would be model bias, which I think both Rafiki and Tiffany have spoken to. The other would be user bias. And so model bias, Tiffany and Rafiki provided some great suggestions. The only one I would add would be making sure that you have a process for testing and validating the output from the models, even if they've been fine-tuned and so on. Because even with those best efforts, you can't account for everybody's perspective. And so engaging a diverse workforce to be part of the testing and validation ensures that that output is tested through a lot of different lenses and enables just a broader and deeper vetting mechanism, before we take that output as truth. But then I think user bias can't be underestimated either. Like we all, as humans, are inherently biased, and so we can bias AI through the fine tuning. We can bias it in its outputs too, based on how we've prompted it and how we're engaging in it. And so I think it's always important to continually vet business processes for bias and make sure that even as we're embedding AI into business processes, that we're trying as much as possible to mitigate individual or group biases that may exist as a result of those processes and systems. And there too, I think engaging a diverse workforce to be part of that process, provides, nothing's foolproof, but provides a strong mitigating mechanism to ensure that you're capturing issues on the way in and before they spiral or become much bigger.
Yeah, you're right. And again, that goes back to you, like you said, keeping the human in it and being considerate of who those humans are that are making up your workforce to be a part of creating the solutions. And I like how you use the word auditing your practices and as well as policies. Thank you for saying that, Marta. Hey, y'all, I want to hear from you. How do you feel about this reliance on AI data and the potential for biases into AI? And how do you feel about mitigating them?
I think this is a good question. It assumes that humans are not biased and that the technology would be more biased.
Right.
I would challenge us to say that in self-reflections, humans probably are as biased or even more than maybe the technology could be. Now, we have an opportunity here because the technology with the right assessments and testing and the right reviews will not have a bias, which I would challenge humans would not ever achieve. And I'll give you an example. We have a health client that has a large contact center. Part of the activities of a contact center is to have a small quality assurance team that listens to the conversations between customers and agents, and they go through a rubric to verify various actions that the agent takes so that they can give them feedback after the call. That doesn't happen on every call. They do a sampling. So typically it's 1% of my calls get audited, essentially.
Okay.
Sometimes it's even less. We had a client that had a human QA. They went through the process of filling out a rubric. They would listen to the calls afterward, back and forth, graded the agent. Our client asked us if we can use AI to autofill that same rubric, that same score sheet. So we implemented our technology. We did all the bias and risk assessments and verifications. And when we compared them side by side, the AI QA versus the human QA didn't have the same results. The AI QA gave the agent a higher score every time, not by a lot, by a little. And we all said, oh, the technology is at fault. And we then decided to put on the headphones and listen to the calls and see where the demerit of the agent occurred.
Right.
And after reviewing numerous of these, we realized that the human QA was biased. They demerited the agent for things that should not have been demerited. Now, that changes the workforce because now you have an ability to have an unbiased QA. And in this case, in call centers, you can QA every call, not 1%. So you're improving quality. But what do you do with this workforce of human QA agents that are really good at listening to calls and marking and grading? Well, this client shifted them from more admin tasks and skills to a coach. They take all the information of that agent in a month and they start doing coaching. So different skills. To Tiffany's point, skills are going to change. The tasks that people are going to change as a result of this new technology, and it's going to change the workforce. It's not going to eliminate it, but rather it's going to change it. And in this case, the AI QA was less biased, and our clients saw an opportunity to really improve the quality of the call center service that they provide to their callers as a result.
That's amazing. And that's interesting. I know, Tiffany, the study you shared, that was equally as interesting as well, because in your example, Eyal, I'm thinking, you know, when you look at when people are filling out for a job, going through an ATS system and all those things, and that implicit bias that the humans have in reviewing it. So yeah, it's almost as if, well, maybe the AI needs to train us to be less biased as we're doing this work, as you think about it. But that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing.
That's coming next year, the AI training us.
Oh yeah? All right. I heard it from you first. Well, I want to pose this final question to our panelists. So what piece of advice would you like to give organizations when it comes to hiring, retaining, or even upskilling talent and incorporating AI into their workforce? Hey, y'all, I'll start with you. What advice do you want to leave some people with?
I think the best advice I would say from a reliance, on this technology, how does this change the workforce? Think of it from the perspective of this. This is an opportunity. This technology will change all of us.
Absolutely.
It's not going to just change a sector or an industry or a job category. Every one of us on this call and every one of us that works with us, interacts with us, is going to do something different in the future. I think it's an important thing for all of us to recognize that and look for opportunities to help embrace. I go back to what I said in the beginning. The best advice I would give you is to look for the innovators, look for the first movers, the folks that are willing to take a risk, learn new skills, apply them, experiment. I kind of think of it as think big, start really small, and then scale up.
Thank you, Eyal. Very good advice. Tiffany, what advice would you give to organizations as they look to retain, train, recruit, and hire individuals in technology coming in with this AI additive that we have? What advice would you give to organizations?
I think first off is recognizing that everybody needs some level of foundational understanding around AI, right? So AI literacy is going to be really important. It doesn't have to be the highly technical skills around actually building technology or any of that, but how do we understand what AI is, how it works, and what its biases and limitations are? That can set the foundation for folks to then use the technology, think critically about the outputs and the way that we can leverage what it's good at in order to then, make our companies more efficient, but also, again, do more with more, as Rafiki said, right? Continue to augment the way that we operate. So don't forget about that piece. I think everybody has a role to play, from your frontline workers up through your C-suite leaders, in order to understand at a basic level what the technology is and then start to build some fluency around using it.
Yes, thank you. I think that's great advice. Start with some AI literacy. And more is more. I think we're all going to take that back with us today. Marta, I'm going to ask you too, what advice would you like to give to organizations when it comes to hiring, retaining, or even upskilling talent and incorporating AI into their workforce?
Sure. My advice would be, there's an opportunity to bring everyone on this journey. Like nobody needs to be left behind.
Yes.
And I also think there's an opportunity to really engage the workforce on how the company can best capitalize and harness the capabilities of AI. So this isn't something that should, have a lot of decisions made behind closed doors. Get out there, talk to your workforce, get their ideas, figure out how do they want to be a part of this? How do they want to evolve their roles? Like what skills do they want to learn and be equipped with? Because they steward the organization every day. And so there's reason to believe that they would know how best to harness AI in their individual roles to augment everything that they're doing, and so that everybody in the company benefits from it.
Yes, that's good advice, Marta. Ask the people, right? There are people who are doing the roles. Ask them how it can help them do more work efficiently, whether it's taking that 30 minutes back, like Ayal mentioned from Microsoft, which is important. So looking at the humans, asking people what it is that they want. I think that does start there. Rafiki, I want you to answer the same question. What advice do you want to give to organizations? And think big, like Ayal just said.
So back to my theme of doing more with more, right? We can have a better world. AI gives us potential and capacity to be more, to have a better world. But that is not inherent in the ones and zeros. It's more inherent in our visions and our values, right? So, how can each organization, each enterprise, each institution look at what their vision and their value is, and how can they expand that, enrich that, and contribute to a better world? A better world will not come by magic. It comes by effort. It comes by commitment. It comes by contribution, right? And so since now we will have more capacity, we can be more efficient, we can be more creative, what part of that windfall will we devote to a better world, and how will we do that? And one case in point, how can businesses, institutions, and enterprises come closer to communities, right? The very communities that you are embedded in. I tell colleges and universities this all the time. Where is the bridge from the ivory tower to the community? Right? And the same goes for enterprise. Where's the bridge from the enterprise to community? AI gives us more capacity to answer those questions and to address those questions.
Thank you, Rafiki. I think that's great advice each of you provided. Rafiki, Ayal, Tiffany, and Marta, you have been tremendous roundtable guests this afternoon. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your perspectives, your guidance, and your passions with us all. And your continued support is so much appreciated. And we have heard from our panelists, and now I want to take a moment to hear from you. So in our audience, you will see a short 3-question poll on your screen. So please take a moment and answer that on your way out. But just because our time together is coming to an end doesn't mean the work stops. There are many ways to get involved in securing tech futures and embracing diversity in artificial intelligence. First, consider Perscola's diverse talent to fill technology position vacancies. Our technologists are highly skilled in the most in-demand roles, from cybersecurity and IT support to Java development, software engineering, and beyond. They're ready to make a difference on the job day one. Second, you can commit a 30-minute call to learn more about Perscola's enterprise talent solutions. Our talent advisors are your partners in building a sustainable tech talent pipeline. And finally, get more involved with Perscola's Diverse by Design. You can get in touch by emailing diversebydesign@perscolas.org. It has been a complete honor to serve as your host today, and I thank you for your interest and commitment to creating more diverse tech futures. Thank you so much, and enjoy your day.